Well, welcome back everybody to PoolieMagTV, the raw, unedited, unscripted NUFC fan channel where everybody's got an opinion and nobody's opinion's wrong. So today's episode is the aftermath from what an absolutely fantastic game of football yesterday was against the Scousers at St James's Park. This is Newcastle United versus Liverpool. Now, as I always say, if you like the content that you see, I'm on the march to 100 subscribers. I've got 51 now, 51 more than I thought I would ever have, so that's fantastic. It really is. So if you do like the what you hear and what you see, from PoolieMagTV, just give it a subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, it just helps the channel grow. But enough of that, I'm not going to shill and sell my channel for the next minute because we've got a lot to get into, from last night and the rivalry in general between Liverpool and Newcastle. So I'm going to go a little bit further back into my history as a Newcastle fan and explain why yesterday was so important to me. So, growing up as a Newcastle fan in the mid-90s, 95, 96 was the first season I started watching football. The first game I can remember vividly was the 1-0 loss against Manchester United at home. And then the second game that I can remember vividly of that season was the 4-3 at Anfield. And that was a great game of football. It's still touted as the greatest game of football in Premier League history. But for me, as a 6-year-old, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. I was upset as a 6-year-old. I was really upset. I was crying. We'd just been beat. I didn't really know everything about football at 6-year-old, but I knew enough to know that, that would damage our title challenges for that season. And it was really the game of football that really got me into supporting Newcastle. It was just the way they played football that game. I know they got beat 4-3, but they were absolutely phenomenal that match. And it also left a sour taste in my mouth from Liverpool that I have never managed to brush or wash out. Season after, we got beat 4-3 again in another last minute by Robbie Fowler. That match wasn't so good. We come back from 3-0 down to 3-all at the last minute there. And this is when I'm starting to be 7-year-old now. I'm starting to wear the kits, I'm starting to get more involved in football. And, I live in Hartlepool. It's predominantly a Manchester, Liverpool town. There's a lot of Newcastle fans. So a lot of my friends growing up with Liverpool fans, unfortunately, and they were just rubbing in how rubbish Newcastle were, even though they weren't rubbish at the time. But as the years got on and crept on, it just started to do my head in. Now, my dad has never liked Liverpool for a very long time, since Heysel, and there's Hillsborough. I'm not going to go into all that. I'm not here to, I'm just giving you my opinion. I think over the years, then we got beat. I'm not going to go every game, but over the years, we haven't really done well against Liverpool, and they've been quite a sticking point against us, other than recently, and I think their fans are quite infuriating, and just the way they go on, that sense of entitlement, the way they think they're something they're not, and, I've had to live with that all my life, I've had to live with self-righteous Liverpool fans, and they're from Hartlepool, and half of them have never even been to a Liverpool game, and then you get the Liverpool fans online, and they're just, they're just so overbearing. It just does me head in. So every game against Liverpool is as big as a game against Sunderland for me, because I honestly, genuinely cannot stand Liverpool. But they tried to turn the heads of Anthony Gordon last season, and they successfully did so for a while, in a slinky move, I thought, and it was another slinky move this season for Alexander Isak, but Isak has fell for it, hook, line and sinker. So, and it's just got our backs up. It's just made us, even them fans who might not have disliked Liverpool are now starting to dislike them, and it's really intensified my, I won't say hatred because that's a strong word, but my disliking of Liverpool, that of a club, the club that plays the victim all the time, but the bullies, the fans who are overbearing, they're bad winners, Liverpool fans. They're just horrible. They just do you absolute head in. And then, so that sets the scene for yesterday. You know, we've got everything going on with Isaac. Me personally, amped up as much as I am for any game. I know it's at St James's Park, so I know we've got a bit more of a chance. I'm sat there on tenterhooks thinking, let's please come out and give these a game. Because if we come out and give these a game, we've got a chance. And wow, did we not come out and give them a game. For the first 30 minutes, we were all over them. They could not handle our press. They could not handle Dan Burns heading. They couldn't handle Anthony Gordon's enthusiasm. Tonali, Bruno. Bruno was absolutely phenomenal all game yesterday. Really made up for the Aston Villa match. You know, they couldn't handle Alanga's pace. The only thing that was missing, I'll let you guess what I'm thinking of there. I'm not going to go into it. But there was one thing missing that was glaring again, wasn't it? But we had plenty of chances. We got tore into them. We got stuck into them. We made them look like, you know, how we should make them look. Because Liverpool aren't the greatest Premier League team of all time. They're like people like to go on about. Jamie Carragher and all them will go on about how great Liverpool are. I don't think they're great. I think they're a very good team. But I don't think they're a great team. I've seen enough of them last season to think if Arsenal had got their finger out their arse and Man City hadn't collapsed, they wouldn't have finished nowhere near the title. And I genuinely believe they'll finish nowhere near the title this season. That first 30 minutes, we absolutely destroyed them. The atmosphere was unreal. I was, honestly, come on, I was going for it. You know, I'm not usually as loud as that. I live in a flat, I'm not usually as loud as that, but I apologise to my next door neighbours, but I was up and down like a yo-yo. And then I thought we just need to start taking these chances because these aren't going to be as bad for all game. And they went 1-0 up. Out the blue. Went 1-0 up. Really good shot from Ramberg. Can't really fault anybody. Just a good shot. So you're thinking, right, okay, let's not let our heads go down. And we didn't. We started to get back into them a little bit. You know, and then Anthony Gordon. The more and more I watch it, the more and more it's a sending off for me. I'm not biased. I don't like them, pardon me. I don't like Liverpool, but I'm not going to come on here and say that wasn't a red card, because it was. In the cold light of day, that was a red card. Now, don't get me started on some of their challenges, because we should have had a fair few penalties, by the way, but I'll get to that. But Anthony Gordon did not do us any favours. He was too amped up. He played great and all. Before then, he was absolutely all over them. You know, he was like he was like just a pest, wasn't he? He was like that wasp you couldn't get shot of. You know, that's what he was like, the Van Dijk, that's what he was like, but, you know, once again his head went. So then you're thinking, right, okay, well, it's got to be now damage limitation. What's Eddie Howe going to say? Is he going to just sit back and sit back and sit back? Eddie Howe knew we couldn't sit back against these because he wasn't going to allow us to get beat 5-6-0 last night and get humiliated. He knew we had to take it to them. And then 20 seconds into the second half, it's 2-0. And I'll admit, I switched off for a little bit. I was fuming. You know, I was absolutely raging with the referee's decision at the time. I thought everything was going against us. I had my black and white tinted glasses on. You know, woe is me, everybody hates us, the pit, everything's against us. You know, and then I heard from the other room, my mum shouting, get in, it's 2-1. So that's me, the fickle fan that I am, switched it back on, and I never switched it back off. You know, and I thought, right, okay, let's get in that. And wow, with 10 men, we butchered them. We absolutely butchered them. 75th minute marks a significant. We had Tonali go off, we had Joe Linton go off, we had Cher go off. Now, Eddie Howe doesn't usually, you know, make positive changes that early, and he doesn't usually bring 3 or 4 players on at the same time, but he did, he had to, we went for it. Will Asula came on, Jacob Ramsey came on, Malik Chow come on, who I thought looked a little bit dodgy at times. You know, he looked a little bit nervous, but Jacob Ramsey didn't look nervous. He come on and he played really good. And Will Asula, 88th minute, you know, got that equaliser, and I was jumping around my front room. I honestly thought, wow, what a comeback. And I was saying to myself, even if we get beat, we've shown that we've got some heart. And I just knew, this is why I foreshadowed it at the beginning. I just knew there was going to be some late drama, just like there always is. You know, last season we got a late equaliser. Liverpool have got about 5 or 6 90th minute winners against us in the Premier League. And lo and behold, the young 16-year-old comes up after we've been battering him for 99 until the 99th minute and nigh on the last kick of the game, and he comes in, and it was a great finish. It was a great pass from Salah. It was a great dummy from Szoboszlai, and it was a great finish from a young 16-year-old in a high-pressure situation. But you know, for once I wasn't fuming. I just looked around that pitch and I just saw 15 foot, how many players were on that pitch that wanted to play for Newcastle United. And it just made me so proud. Yes, obviously I wasn't happy that we got beat. But 10 men against the champions of England to claw back at 2-0, you know, and keep going and going and going and going and going at them. I thought it was a fantastic performance. I really did. Bruno Guimaraes, wow. Yeah, any bad thing I've ever said about you, I take back after last night, because he was absolutely phenomenal. He was all over the pitch. He was talismanic. He was great. So was Dan Burn. Dan Burn was a colossus at the back. Like I say, Malik Chow coming in has a few things to learn, I think, but it's not the easiest coming in, is it, down? Oh, pardon me. It's not the easiest coming into a match when you're 2-1 down to 10 men against Liverpool. So I'll let them off with that. Harvey Barnes went missing again, I thought. But another great ball in for another header for Gordon in the first half. But other than that, Anonymous couldn't get past the makeshift right back. Really, really poor from him. But Elanga and everybody else, quality performance. The only thing that was missing was, was a striker. I'm not even going to go into his act. I've done too many videos on him. I just want to say how proud I am, of the Newcastle performance last night. Let's hope we get a couple of deals done, in the next week or so, Strand Larsen or Whistler or whoever we need to. And let's hope we can put it to bed the Isaac saga, because I'm absolutely sick to death of it. But two cracking performances, two different performances. With two cracking performances, we've only got 1 point to show for it though. We've got Leeds away on Saturday at 5 o'clock. We need to really, really knuckle down. I think if we play like that against Leeds, I think we'll beat them. Well, that was a cracking performance in a very high tense game, and it was a game that I've always classed as a derby. It has that derby feel for me. I've always disliked Liverpool. I've given you some reasons why. I will be making a more in-depth, on England breaks and that, more in-depth videos around certain clubs that I think Newcastle have bigger rivalries with sometimes than they do with Sunderland and things like that. And I want his comments on that, because I have got through a lot of different ideas floating about my head. But obviously when the matches are on, you want a little bit of match reaction. But that's not all this channel's about, match reaction and transfer news. There is other topics that I can discuss, and Liverpool certainly will be one more in depth. But I've given you a little bit of a flavour of why I dislike Liverpool and why yesterday was so important to me. But I'd just like to end it on, I'm really proud of the players for yesterday's performance, and onwards and upwards to Leeds. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, hit subscribe, hit like, and comment down below with your opinions on yesterday's game, and just share the channel. So anyway, like I always say, keep it easy for me to say, keep it black and white and keep it PoolieMagTV. Over and out, folks.